So today is June 1st, and finally last night I was able to come home from the hospital. Uh, my tip of my tongue is still numb. La, 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 that much of it is still numb. I've bitten my tongue at least twice. I can't tell how many times for sure because the tip of my tongue is numb, and I can't feel if I'm biting the tip of it. Um, as it's slowly, ever so slowly, been a little less numb, some sore spots have popped up, so I don't know how many times I've bitten it. I've been trying to be careful. I've been trying to eat gently, and you can't do much when it's numb like that. But my little buddy is right there. You can see it sitting propped up against the edge of my wedge pillow. My arm still vacuum sealed to it or whatever. Friday, so today is Monday, so Friday is when I'll go for the big appointment to get the vacuum seal off and the bolster off, and they'll check how the skin grafting went for the bottom of the phallus and for where the fistula had reached the surface, and also the skin grafting on my arm, all that fun stuff that I'm not looking forward to at all. And then they'll also take these bandage things that are taped to my body off from around where they took the donor skin from my thigh. So what they do is they take a really, really shallow bit of skin that just cuts the very tops in a straight line off of, the nerves and the capillaries. And the bleeding has thankfully receded quite a bit. They did a full dressing change, like even the ace bandages and stuff, before they sent me home from the hospital, on my thigh, so that I would be starting with less saturated blood, because eventually I started getting some sensation in my leg after that block. So they're pretty sure it's because I'm a redhead, like naturally redhead, because, they have to be careful with anesthesia because of that. Painkillers kind of can be weird for me because of it, and um, pretty sure that's why my tongue still is numb on the end. But one of the big things is the block. They initially gave me what they thought would only be sensitivity. They did not think they were numbing the whole leg like that. So it took 48 hours before it mostly went away. When I woke up in the morning on the 31st, I could feel most of my calf, my shin, like basically from the knee down, but I still could not feel any of my thigh except for the very top part where it had been burning, like at all. And so they were like, "What?" Like it was pretty surprising for them as well, just how intense the block ended up being for stuff like that. There's no way to know. It's like a trial error thing. um you never know what's going to happen with that. But it did mean I was in the hospital, much longer than they wanted me to spend the night, go home the next morning after my surgery, and instead, again, I didn't come home until last night. When I came home last night, it was interesting because there was still a part of my thigh that was numb. A couple of hours before I was gonna be going home, they started me up with the mobility folks, walking around, and it was interesting because I could feel like but my kneecap down, and I can feel above the thigh, but there was like this strip of numbness in the thigh, and I had to figure out how to stand and feel stable on that. And so it felt like trying to put jello in between two stable parts of my body, and then visualize that the jello's not going to collapse, that the jello's going to stay there, and it's okay. So we walked around quite a bit trying to get used to that feeling, and the more I walked around, the better it got and stuff, so it was okay. But it was definitely weird. The nurses really, really loved all my jokes and everything, and were sad that I was leaving again. Some of them were like, "Oh my God, I hope you can come back in August, and I'll be here, and I'll be your nurse again, and I'll look forward to it." There was a new nurse, and I kind of broke her brain accidentally because she didn't get the jokes, and I'm telling like basic dad jokes and puns and stuff, right? Like, and most of the nurses adore it, but she's definitely from a different country. I don't know what, but she just didn't understand the jokes, and she could tell everyone else could. And so I didn't mean to make her feel embarrassed. So eventually, when we were alone, I did a joke with her, and she was, oh my God. I said, why did the pony need to drink some water? And she's like, pony, what? So she, was like, would a pony drink water? And I was like, don't animals drink water? And she was like, a pony is an animal. So I thought even that would be a pretty basic joke that like even anyone could maybe get, but she didn't know what a pony was. So she actually Googled it because I said, "Oh, it's a little horse," because that's the punchline of the joke. Why did the pony need to drink some water? It's a little horse. Well, she was like, "No, that can't be true." So she Googled it on her phone, and she was like, oh, "It's a little horse," So finally, I did find a joke that she got. It was, "Why did the bank robbers go through the showers?" Because they wanted to make a clean break, right? A clean escape. She finally understood that. She was like, "Oh, hey," because she finally understood it joke. But yeah, I'm not saying like crazy complicated jokes. There's one of the mobility physical therapy guys, or it might be operational therapy guys. But anyway, he does dad jokes too. So we'll just say them back and forth to each other over and over again, while we're just doing stuff. And so I really enjoy that. Because neither of us runs out because we both are just silly apparently. But yeah, some of the nurses, one of the nurses wanted to set me up with her niece, which I thought was cute, but also I'm not dating anyone, so I was like, "Oh, that's sweet of you," trying to deflect. But she, sometimes you get in conversations with the nurses too, not just jokes. And they ask, "Oh, what are you going to college for?" Things like that. And she's one of the ones who's more of like a charge nurse or whatever, but she thinks I'm really smart, and that I have like really good views about how to help the world be better and about people and stuff. So anyway, um, one of the things that I had said was that nursing is more AI proof than a lot of jobs. That a lot of people, have in the past wanted to get easy jobs or cushy jobs where they could just go to work, not have to pay attention much, and then go home. But the problem with those jobs is they're much easier for AI to replace. And something like nursing, where it's a very hard work, but it's also interpersonal work, where you work with people, and your job involves some emotional work as well as all that physical work. It's not the kind of job that would be easy for AI to replace. And she was like, "That's so true, that makes so much sense," because a lot of people in her family became nurses, apparently because her father decided that was a good career for his daughters, and people had made fun of him for it. And back in India. Her father had been from Pakistan, but when she was little, it was India. But she was like, they used to be like, "Oh, your daughters will just be wives, and they'll be fine. Why even have them learn to do work? And if work, why such hard work? Why not, some simple tech job or something, or being on like call services or something?" And he was like, "No, nursing." And she's very grateful to her father, and a whole bunch of like her and her nieces and cousins and things like that all became nurses, and even her own children are becoming nurses and stuff because she feels like her father had some foresight about that and made sure that they would all be able to take care of themselves and have good lives, even if he passed away or say, a spouse passed away, that they'd still be able to take care of themselves. So she was, really grateful for that and everything. And she thought that what I was saying was really good, And so later she's like, she came back and was like, "You're so smart," and everything. And I'm just like, "Yeah, thanks," trying not to think about, what any suggestiveness. Um, I got the impression that one of the nurses flirted with me some, and I told my roommate, and she was like, "Oh, maybe they were just being nice." I was like, "Well, I always think that, but this one in specific came in when she no longer had to work, and she waited with me until transport got there. And after my roommate had left the room, she was like, "So is that your sister? Is that your girlfriend? Like, who is she to you, like, really?" And I'm like, "Well, like I've said, she's my roommate." And she's like, "Yeah, but like, you live with a girl, like, roommate." So she wanted me to expound upon it and stuff. And I was like, "Yeah, we're basically like siblings." And then my roommate was like, "No, yeah, she's into you then. If she's asking if I'm your girlfriend because I'm your roommate, then she's interested." And I was like, "Ugh, why does this keep happening?" And my roommate was like, "She was pretty cute." And I was like, and then on top of that, she's like, she's seen what's going on down there. She knows, so you wouldn't have to feel like embarrassed. And I'm like, I'm just not dating. Like, I'm just not dating. No, I don't know why. It's like the more I insist I'm not dating, the more women keep showing an interest in me. And I don't understand that because, like, wouldn't they wait until I'm interested? Like, why is it the more. I'm not playing a game of being hard to get or something, but I feel like the universe is like, "Oh, he's playing hard to get. Let's toss women at him," or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being weird. I mean, the universe obviously doesn't actually sit around thinking, But I just, it's interesting how that works because there's been times in my life before where I absolutely was looking and I was very much wanting a relationship, and girls wouldn't even look at me during that, sometimes. Sometimes when I was looking, girls would also look, but there's definitely been times when I was super lonely and very interested in finding someone, and it was like impossible. So it's very, I don't know, ironic to me, I guess, that I'm like very in a I should not be dating anyone mode, and this keeps happening. Anyway, I feel like, especially now that I have to have like a, a little surgery to fix the fistula situation, um, even more surgery is getting inserted into my life. And I just feel like I shouldn't date until I'm past some of this surgery stuff anyway, because it's kind of a lot to put on someone, especially if it was a new relationship or it was a relationship that was starting out. I feel like, you know, it's just kind of a lot. And it's better to get through some of this surgical stuff. So I feel like my psychologist is right, and I could just say, "Hey, for medical reasons, not dating for at least 6 months." I feel like that's pretty reasonable, and it'll give me time to sort out emotional stuff as well. But like, I just, I mean, I'm too prone to complications with surgeries. It is a shock to me that the most dangerous surgery out of all of them is the one that I didn't have any complications except that they needed to put some skin grafting, you know, on the bottom of the phallus because they couldn't actually fully close it because it's kind of thick. Um, I'm fine with that. I'm happy with the girth of it. Again, the girth is exactly what I was hoping it would be. So if that's the cost of having the girth that I would more want, then kudos. I'll take having to have a skin graft on the bottom of it. But the point is, I did all that electrolysis and I got my weight exactly where it was supposed to be, and I did all this stuff working so hard and got such good results, and it was the big giant dangerous surgery, you know? And now here's this one where it's just supposed to be a little skin graft thing, and it had a whole bunch of complications again. It's really weird. um I just I thought, I don't know, maybe there's some small part of me that thought, oh, hey, I didn't have complications for once. It's the first surgery where, technically I had a complication, but it was like a non issue complication. Just adding some more skin to the bottom of the phallus. I can live with that. So I was like, hey, maybe it's possible for me to just not have complications. Wouldn't that be cool? A little too hopeful there. I got a little too rose colored glasses. But if I have to have complications, then at least they're all survivable ones. Um, it was definitely not the most comfortable thing in the world having this, like, dead leg for a couple of days there, but I am able to walk around now. I do have feeling, and in a way, I think it might have been probably a good thing because, again, I was bleeding a lot, and now I'm not bleeding not as much. And the blood from my thigh would have, like, stained all my bedding, and my roommate definitely wouldn't have been okay with it. And she's already very squeamish because one of the things that had to be done is the wire be pulled out during the surgery. The wires from when they had the Doppels attached to, um, when they did my phallus, they put in the two blood vessels in the artery. Those wires were still inside my body and they had to pull that out. Well, now there's this, like, I don't know, tube thing that has to have a small ribbon of gauze like stuff. It's very much not actually gauze, but I don't know what it's called. But they look kind of like a ribbon of gauze like stuff, and you have to take a long Q-tip thing and push it up inside of that tube with the tail sticking out, and then each day pull the tail out and push a new one in. And that all by itself makes her pretty, like, nauseated, and she didn't have to do it for a couple of days, and the nurses could do it. um, yeah, but when I went walking around, the pads that are taped onto the side of everything on the thigh, they were really saturated with blood, so they started falling off, and that was pretty, um, I could tell, embarrassing for the nurses that I had these pads of blood, the blood saturated pads just, like, falling off of me. And so they had to go back and mop the floors and clean stuff up and everything. I felt kind of bad for that. I tried to wipe some of the blood up with my socks. They laughed at that. Because I try to be nice to everyone, the custodial people, I always thank them every time they come in to change the trash and the linens and stuff. So they had gotten a little used to me as well. And when the one of the women custodians came in, and was asked to mop all this stuff up, I said, I'm sorry, I'm so bloody annoying. And she laughed a little because she was like, oh, it's blood, and then um, she was cleaning up some, and I said, I'll try to be less, bleeding on everything. They've had to change my gown now. Like, at that point, it was 8 times. I think it was 9 times that they had to change everything because I bled so much before I left. Um, but she, I was like, oh, I'll try to bleed less. I said, next time I feel the blood coming out, I'll go like this. And she laughed. She thought that was so funny that I thought I could suck my blood back in or something. So she was happy about that. I think she didn't hold any kind of a grudge against me or resentment or anything that she had to do some extra work. So I'm grateful for that because I really cannot tolerate people resenting me. Like, that's the worst, is being resented. So I'm glad that she was laughing and stuff instead. But I'm definitely bleeding a lot less. They gave me pads for putting on the bedding for me to bleed onto. but also there's the pads that get taped onto me. And then there's this big brown ace bandage stuff, and there's a thinner one for down low, and then a thicker one for up, like on the thigh and stuff. And it's supposed to be wound up and then unwound each day, like when you go to bed. But you always start at the foot for winding it on, and you wind it down to the foot, because apparently, if you start at the thigh, you can compress blood flow in a really negative way. So you always want to start at the foot and make the compression go up that direction from the foot upward. But they have to use two because of how long the leg is and stuff like that. So it kind of wraps up, and then there's the big, giant, very saturated pad sponge thingies that are underneath of this padding stuff that is taped to my body, and then they tape more pads onto the outside of that to catch blood, and it gets saturated and stuff. And so the top of it is held on by the mesh underwear, because they don't want to tape more tape to my body, which I appreciate because it rips out all my freaking body hairs every freaking time. But the pads get taped kind of onto each other. And then when the ace bandage gets a rewrap, those ones kind of get peeled off. The bottom base thing that's taped onto my body stays there. Tape new pads on to catch more of the blood that comes out. So it's a lot of blood, but it is what it is. It kind of burns, but the burning has come down quite significantly. And apparently, the good thing about the block, even though it did, again, make it so that I was a fall risk and I couldn't leave the hospital and stuff, I did not have to feel 2 days worth of the burning except on the very top strip of my thigh. And now that I'm home, I can tell it burns some, but it's very far diminished from how painful it was at the actual hospital itself. So it's worth it. I am not allowed to bathe at all, like only wipies. No showering of any kind until the appointment on Friday. So that's interesting, but I do have to try to keep the wipiness, keeping things clean and stuff like that. I'm still not supposed to wipe with toilet paper. It's still wipe with wipies after going to the bathroom. And I'm still dreading them pulling this off of me. It hurts so freaking much. The last time, it hurts so bad. I'm not looking forward to it again. But once it's off, and I should hopefully never have to have a vacuum seal like this on me again. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I right now am not supposed to do any wrist movement exercises, but they don't want it in a splint either. But I am still supposed to do my finger exercises, so that part's fine to do. But they don't want me doing too much exercising with the arm, which is fine because the arm hurts. Weirdly, they said, oh, it'll probably be the thigh that hurts most, and the arm will hurt less than the thigh for this part of it. But I still feel like the arm hurts more than the thigh. And that's just personally where I'm at. It's been painful for sure, but I mean, again, I can survive anything that's temporary. The surgery overall is still like a success. It's still going well. I still have the phallus that I've waited my entire life for, and it's a little closer to being whole. And the top part of it that had been open with the zero form on it is like a lot of it healing over now, which is just like super impressive to me how fast that heals. I'm probably going to have to get medical tattooing though. I had thought about maybe getting medical tattooing at some point, but I hadn't really decided. But now it's probably for sure I'm going to need medical tattooing at some point, because the skin grafting is also like on the phallus itself, and you know, with this many surgical complications, and I have this many surgeries still to go that could have complications, it's pretty much there's not going to be a way around it. I'll probably need medical tattooing. Medical tattooing is where the tattooing is meant to help decrease the way the scars look like scars and make it more look like skin. Like match the coloration and the blending into your skin. So that's just probably something that's going to have to happen. But I keep telling myself all of this is worth it. And I am finally, after they pull everything off on Friday, if it goes well, I'm finally going to be into the last dredges of recovering from this surgery in the bad pain, like bed rest requirements kind of way. I'm still gonna have to do a bunch of physical therapy, and I'm still gonna have to deal with that, but right now I am set that supposedly June 12th ish I will be able to start sitting and be able to start, not have to keep my phallus in a little phallus palace of a cloud of gauze, and be able to start exercising more. I won't be able to lift weights, but I mean, it's the first, and it's getting closer and closer. There'll be less stress about wound care, and there'll be significantly less pain, and things will be on track. And so I keep trying to hold on to that. It's really not that far away at this point. It's getting closer. And yes, school's going to start almost immediately, and I'm going to have to deal with a whole bunch of other kinds of stressors, and I got to get now this extra in-between surgery to fix this fistula that developed. But you know what? It's all still progress. It's all still moving forward, and I'm getting closer and closer to where the surgeries going forward will be a lot less impactful. Like, I still am surviving the hardest, biggest, like the phalloplasty comes in stages, and the stage I just got through these two surgeries for is the hardest stage. Like, it's just full on the biggest, bulkiest, scariest part. And so I've overcome that. And going forward, it'll be less bad. And that's a relief. That's like, hey, the biggest part of the hurdles is overcome. I still am having issues with the delivery company that's supposed to be delivering gauze here. They still suck, unfortunately. So that's a pity. I have had some people message me, which is kind. I'm very grateful for that. I am not sure how these complications and stuff are going to affect school yet. I got to figure that out and find out about that kind of stuff. And again, I did reach out about trying to get in contact with the urologist about hopefully being able to have surgery in August. We'll see how all of that response and everything goes. But yeah, I'm finally home. So it was a much longer stay at the hospital than expected, because again, it should have just been I went home the next morning, and instead I didn't get home till last night. But I'm here, and things are still moving forward, and it will be okay. And eventually my tongue will unnumb. Eventually I'll feel it again. La, 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 la. Someday I will feel my tip of my tongue again. um, and I just gotta somehow survive Friday when they rip this off my arm and stuff. I really hope they do the lidocaine drip thing. Even if it does mean my arm will be numb for a while or something, it'll be worth it, I feel like. So, is there anything else about this surgery stuff for now? They sent me home with a bunch of stuff again, especially since the delivery company hasn't been going well. Something that I found out. So, for anyone who has any kind of surgery at hospital, even if it's not phalloplasty, when you leave, they throw away the supplies, whether they were opened or not, that were in the room. So if a nurse brings, say, a thing of gauze into the room, or brings, like, I don't know, a little mini pack with, like, chapstick and lotion and stuff in it, if it's in there, whether you used it or not, they will throw it away after you leave. So just take it home with you, because the more supplies you have to help make your recovery less stressful, the better. And also, it's just a waste. I was like, holy crap, really? And they were like, yeah. So I just was like, well, I'll take all of it then. The only things that doesn't seem to count for is linens that they can wash, metal that they can wash. Those things stay. And then I think ice packs that haven't been broken. But other than that, like, they could have used like only one little piece of a roll of tape for taping gauze, and they have to throw away that whole roll. Or you could just take it home. And let me tell you, having more supplies is helpful. So do it. Take home the supplies. I had no idea last time when I left that I could have taken home even more than what I had realized. So from now on, every surgery when I'm going to the hospital, all my surgeries up until now, I did not realize they literally throw stuff away. I thought if it hadn't been opened yet, like, things of wipies and stuff, that they would just save them to use on a different patient, but they don't. Because apparently, even if they wiped it off or whatever, they don't consider it sterile enough to keep. And I'm like, that's ridiculous in my mind, but that's apparently policy. So keep the stuff, get the free stuff. So I have extra pads and mesh underwear and gauze and stuff like that. And even if I don't use 100% of it, my goal is, I mean, I'm part of, you know, a queer trans cooperative and stuff. If somebody else wanted to get surgery or something, I'd be able to give them some leftovers. Now, I don't know if I'll have any leftovers, especially because this delivery company is really sucky at delivering things that they're supposed to deliver. So I might need them all. But, you know, if I happen to have something left over, I would definitely try to help the next person. Because they're unopened. Like, uh, it, it's very surprising to me that they would just throw like whole rolls of gauze and things like that away when they're so precious. Like, those are precious things. And maybe it's not sterile enough for them, but I think it would be sterile enough for most people if it's never been opened. You know? So, keep the stuff. Keep the stuff. Um, Again, that's for any surgery, not just phalloplasty. So, anywho, I'm gonna hop off of here for now. I don't know when next I'll record. Maybe after the appointment on Friday or something. Let you know how it goes, how painful it was. But yeah. Anyway, the journey is far from over, but the worst of it is about to be done, and that'll be amazing. Just gotta survive Friday. Just gotta survive Friday. But at least I'm home for a bit, until possibly like August.